I had the most bone-chilling experience studying late at night in the university library. It was one of those nights during finals week when the library became a refuge for students like me, desperately trying to absorb as much information as possible. But little did I know that night would forever change my perception of the quiet solitude within those library walls. As the clock struck midnight, the library was practically deserted. The rows of empty desks and dimly lit aisles set an eerie stage for my solitary studying session. I settled into a corner, surrounded by towering bookshelves, and buried myself in textbooks and notes. The silence was deafening. The only sounds were the occasional rustling of pages and the faint buzz of the fluorescent lights overhead. With each passing hour, my focus deepened, but so did the feeling of unease creeping up my spine. It started with a faint whisper, barely audible. I brushed it off as my imagination playing tricks on me, a consequence of the late hour and lack of sleep. But as time went on, the whispers grew louder and more distinct, as if carried on the wind through the labyrinthine stacks. I strained my ears, trying to decipher the words. They seemed to be fragments of conversations, snippets of dialogue that didn't quite make sense. It was as if the library itself held residual echoes of past discussions and debates, manifesting in those ghostly whispers. The unsettling part was that I couldn't pinpoint the source of the whispers. They seemed to come from all directions, floating in the air like ethereal specters. Sometimes they were so close I felt someone was standing right behind me, their breath tickling the back of my neck. But every time I turned, the space remained empty, devoid of any human presence. The whispers began to take a toll on my concentration. I found myself glancing over my shoulder every few minutes, my heart pounding in my chest. The eerie atmosphere cast a shadow of paranoia over me, as if unseen eyes were watching my every move. But the true terror awaited me in the secluded study rooms located on the upper floor. These rooms were known for their eerie ambiance, with dim lighting and old wooden furniture. Curiosity got the best of me, and I ventured up the creaky staircase to explore them, hoping to find a quieter spot away from the whispers that plagued me. As I stepped into one of the rooms, a chill ran down my spine. The air felt heavy, and a sense of dread washed over me. I could swear I heard faint footsteps behind me, echoing through the hallway, but when I turned, there was no one there. I took a seat at one of the desks and tried to regain my composure, but it was futile. The room seemed to come alive with inexplicable noises, a door creaking, the shuffle of papers, and soft whispers that seemed to rise from the very walls. Suddenly, the lights flickered and went out, plunging the room into darkness. Panic gripped me as I fumbled for my phone to use its feeble flashlight. But before I could illuminate the room, a piercing scream tore through the silence, freezing me in place. It was a sound of pure terror, the kind that resonates deep within your bones. My heart raced as I scrambled to leave the room, but the door seemed to resist, as if held shut by an unseen force. With every ounce of strength, I forced it open and stumbled out into the hallway, gasping for breath. I couldn't explain what happened that night, but it shook me to my core. The library, once a sanctuary for knowledge and tranquility, had become a place of inexplicable terror. From that moment on, studying late at night lost its appeal, and the library's secrets remained locked within its whispering stacks. So, my friend, take my advice. If you ever find yourself studying late at night in an old library, beware the whispers that linger in the air, and be prepared for the unimaginable horrors that may lurk within its hallowed halls. I've been working as a janitor at the town library for years, and I've seen my fair share of oddities during my late-night shifts. But nothing could have prepared me for the chilling encounter I had one fateful evening as I went about my routine cleaning duties. It was a particularly stormy night, rain pouring relentlessly against the library windows. The building stood empty, except for me, armed with a mop and a bucket of soapy water. I relished the solitude and the peace that often accompanied these late-night shifts. As I made my way through the rows of bookshelves, the quietness of the library felt suffocating. The only sound was the echo of my footsteps reverberating through the empty space. The dim overhead lights cast long, eerie shadows along the aisles, adding an unsettling atmosphere to my already lonesome task. The cleaning process was routine, mundane even, until I reached the basement. Descending the creaky staircase, a sense of unease washed over me. The air grew damp and musty, and the flickering fluorescent lights barely illuminated the labyrinthine hallways. As I navigated the dimly lit corridors, strange noises reached my ears. A soft scratching sound, as if someone was dragging their nails along the walls. I brushed it off as rats or some other critters, trying not to let my imagination run wild. But then, I heard it. A whisper, barely audible, but distinct enough to send shivers down my spine. It sounded like someone murmuring incoherent words, their voice filled with anguish and desperation. My heart raced as I strained to catch any semblance of meaning from the whispered words, but they remained elusive. Determined to complete my duties, I pushed forward, my eyes darting from shadow to shadow. The feeling of being watched intensified, as if unseen eyes followed my every move. I couldn't shake off the creeping sensation that the library's emptiness was deceptive, that something unseen lurked just beyond my line of sight. As I reached the far end of the basement, I froze in terror. A figure, draped in tattered clothes, stood at the end of the hallway, partially obscured by darkness. My breath caught in my throat as I tried to comprehend what I was seeing. A specter, a ghostly presence haunting the library's depths. The figure glided toward me, its movements eerily graceful, and its eyes gleamed with a malevolent light. Fear rooted me to the spot as it drew closer, its whispered words growing louder, filling the air with a cacophony of anguish and despair. I couldn't make out the words, but their haunting tone sent chills down my spine. Summoning every ounce of courage, I turned and fled, sprinting up the basement stairs, my heart pounding in my ears. I burst out into the main library, gasping for air and fighting back the panic threatening to overwhelm me. As I caught my breath, I glanced back, expecting to see the specter pursuing me. But the library stood silent and still, as if untouched by the supernatural encounter I had just experienced. Was it a figment of my imagination? A product of exhaustion and late-night solitude? Or had I truly encountered a restless spirit trapped within the library's walls? From that night on, I approached my janitorial duties with trepidation. The library, once a place of solace and knowledge, had transformed into a haunting labyrinth of whispers and unseen entities. I couldn't shake off the feeling that even in its apparent silence it harbored secrets and entities beyond human comprehension. So, my friend, if you ever find yourself alone in the depths of a library at night, be prepared for the chilling presence that may lurk within its darkest corners. Trust your instincts, and never underestimate the power of the haunting silence that can engulf even the most ordinary of places. As an avid reader, the library has always been my sanctuary, a place of solace and knowledge. But one fateful evening, that haven of books transformed into a nightmare that would forever haunt my memory. It was a typical rainy night, and I found myself studying in the dimly lit corners of the library. The sound of raindrops tapping against the windows created a soothing backdrop as I delved into my research. The library was nearly empty, with only a handful of dedicated souls scattered among the aisles. As I sat at my table, surrounded by towering bookshelves, I couldn't help but notice an eerie stillness settling over the room. The silence was suffocating, broken only by the occasional flip of a page or the muffled footsteps of a librarian in the distance. It felt as if the air itself held its breath, waiting for something ominous to unfold. As I continued my reading, I noticed a peculiar phenomenon. The books on the shelves seemed to shift ever so slightly, as if being rearranged by unseen hands. At first, I dismissed it as a trick of the light, or my tired mind playing tricks on me. But as the minutes passed, the movements became more pronounced, more deliberate. A chill crept up my spine as whispers, barely audible, reached my ears. The words were indistinct, like fragments of forgotten conversations carried on a phantom breeze. I strained to listen, trying to decipher the source of the hushed voices, but they seemed to emanate from all around me, elusive and ever-shifting. My heart quickened its pace as a sense of unease washed over me. The library, once a sanctuary, now felt like a trap. The previously comforting scent of old books turned acrid. The flickering lights above seemed to cast elongated shadows that danced menacingly along the aisles. Unable to ignore the mounting dread, I rose from my seat, my footsteps echoing through the eerily quiet space. As I cautiously made my way through the labyrinthine rows of bookshelves, the whispers grew louder, more insistent, as if beckoning me deeper into their ethereal web. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I caught a glimpse of a figure standing in the shadows, a silhouette with piercing eyes that seemed to glow with an otherworldly light. Fear rooted me to the spot as I watched the figure glide toward me, its steps soundless, its intentions unknown. I tried to scream, to call for help, but my voice failed me, trapped in the grip of this spectral presence. Closer and closer it approached, until I could feel its icy breath upon my neck, sending shivers cascading down my spine. Just as I thought I could bear it no longer, the figure vanished into thin air, leaving behind an unsettling silence that enveloped the library once more. I stumbled backward, my legs giving way beneath me, and rushed toward the exit, desperate to escape the confines of that haunted place. As I stepped out into the night, gasping for breath, I glanced back at the library's unassuming facade. To the outside world, it was just a building filled with books, but I knew the truth. The library held secrets, secrets that whispered in the night, eager to ensnare the unwary.